Have you ever woken up with a heavy knot of dread in your stomach because you have to face a person who systematically dismantles your confidence for 8 hours a day? Many people believe that enduring a toxic boss is simply a rite of passage in the professional world, but this normalized suffering is actually a silent epidemic that destroys our mental health and physical well-being. We are told to toughen up or to develop a thicker skin, yet science shows that chronic workplace abuse triggers the same neurological trauma as high-intensity combat zones. This video is not just about office politics, it is truly about reclaiming your dignity and surviving an environment that was never designed for your success. We will explore the mechanics of the abusive management style and provide you with the psychological tools to stand your ground without losing your sanity in the process. Understanding the nature of an abusive superior requires us to look past their title and see the fragile ego that usually drives their destructive behavior. Most toxic managers operate from a place of deep-seated insecurity, so they use aggression as a shield to hide their own perceived inadequacies from the world. Dr. Laura Crawshaw, a renowned executive coach often called the boss whisperer, explains that these abrasive leaders are frequently driven by an overwhelming fear of appearing incompetent. This internal panic causes them to lash out at anyone they perceive as a threat to their dominance or their professional reputation. They rely on the authority trap, which is a psychological phenomenon where people feel obligated to obey someone simply because they hold a position of power over them. This trap makes you feel small and powerless, but you must remember that their title does not give them ownership over your self-worth or your personal identity. When a leader uses shame or public humiliation as a management tool, they are not demonstrating strength, but are actually revealing a complete lack of emotional intelligence. Robert Sutton, a Stanford professor and author of the No Asshole Rule, suggests that the best measure of a person's character is how they treat those with less power than themselves. If your manager is consistently demeaning to subordinates while being perfectly charming to their own bosses, you are dealing with a strategic bully rather than a flawed leader. By recognizing that their outbursts are a reflection of their own internal chaos, you can begin to detach your emotions from their irrational and hurtful actions. You must view their behavior as a medical symptom of their own psychological dysfunction rather than a valid critique of your professional abilities or your personal character. One of the most dangerous tools in a toxic manager's kit is gaslighting, which is a form of psychological manipulation where they make you doubt your own perceptions. You might finish a project exactly as requested, only to be told later that you completely misunderstood the instructions or failed to meet a standard that was never clearly defined. Bill Eddy, a global expert on high-conflict personalities, notes that these individuals often struggle with black and white thinking and an obsession with shifting blame onto others. This creates a state of constant mental fog, making it nearly impossible for you to feel confident in your skills or your contributions to the team. If you allow this cycle to continue without intervention, you will eventually lose trust in your own memory and your professional intuition. To fight back against this confusion, you must become a master of documentation by keeping a detailed log of every interaction and every instruction you receive. This process is often called defensive record keeping, and it serves as your ultimate insurance policy against a manager who tries to rewrite the history of your performance. When you have a physical record of the truth, the manager's attempts to manipulate the facts lose their power over your mind and your professional reputation. Always follow up verbal meetings with a summary email that clearly outlines the agreed-upon tasks, deadlines, and expectations to ensure there is no room for later distortion. If you are finding this information helpful, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to help our channel reach others who are currently struggling with toxic leaders. Surviving an abusive environment requires you to implement a technique known as the gray rock method, which involves becoming as uninteresting and non-responsive as a plain gray rock. Toxic superiors often thrive on the emotional reactions of their targets, so they will continue to poke and prod until they see you get angry or visibly upset. By providing short and factual answers without any emotional flavor, you starve the bully of the psychological satisfaction they get from watching you suffer under their control. You should never share your personal vulnerabilities or your private life with a superior who has shown they're willing to use your emotions against you. Keep every conversation strictly focused on the work at hand, and always redirect the dialogue back to the facts whenever they try to make the situation personal. This professional wall acts as a shield for your spirit, allowing you to perform your duties while keeping your inner peace safe from their daily verbal attacks. It is also vital to establish what experts call psychological firm boundaries, which are clear limits on what behaviors and communication styles you will accept in your professional space. If a manager begins to yell or use profanity, you can calmly state that you are happy to discuss the work once the conversation can proceed in a professional tone. This is not about being combative or disrespectful, but it is about demonstrating that you are a person who requires a basic level of human decency to function. When you refuse to participate in their theatrical displays of anger, you effectively reclaim the high ground and maintain your professional standing in the eyes of any witnesses. A long-term survival strategy must include the cultivation of a life and an identity that exists entirely outside the four walls of your current workplace. Abusive managers often try to isolate their victims by making them feel that their job is the only thing that matters or that they are lucky to be employed at all. This is a common tactic used by high-conflict leaders to ensure that you feel too depleted and discouraged to look for better opportunities elsewhere in the market. You must actively resist this isolation by maintaining strong connections with mentors, professional peers, and friends who can provide a reality check against the manager's constant criticism. Engaging in hobbies and personal projects that have nothing to do with your career will help you maintain a sense of mastery and competence that the manager cannot touch. You should also practice the art of cognitive reframing, which is a psychological technique where you consciously choose to view a negative situation through a different and more empowering lens. Instead of seeing yourself as a victim of an unfair boss, try to see yourself as an undercover agent who is gathering data and building resilience for a much better future. Every difficult interaction is a chance to practice your de-escalation skills and your emotional regulation, which are high-value leadership traits that will serve you well in your next role. By shifting your perspective from passive suffering to active learning, you transform your toxic workplace into a temporary training ground for your own personal and professional evolution. This mental shift does not make the abuse acceptable, but it does give you the strength to endure the situation until your planned exit strategy is ready to be executed. The final step in surviving an abusive management style is recognizing that your current situation is a temporary chapter and not the final destination of your entire career. It is very easy to fall into the trap of learned helplessness, which is a psychological state where a person stops trying to escape a painful situation. You must actively fight this feeling by investing your energy into your own growth and searching for a culture that actually values your unique talents and hard work. No paycheck or title is ever worth the permanent destruction of your health, so you must always be preparing your exit strategy even if you cannot leave today. You should keep your resume updated and stay active in your professional network so that you are always ready to move when the right opportunity finally appears. Remember that the ultimate goal is not just to survive the abuse, but to move toward a professional life where you can truly thrive and grow without fear. Surround yourself with people who remind you of your true value outside of the toxic vacuum created by your abusive superior or your dysfunctional workplace culture. You are the CEO of your own life, and you have the absolute power to fire anyone who treats your dignity as if it were a disposable resource. By standing in your truth and protecting your mental space, you prove that a toxic manager can control your schedule, but they can never control your spirit. Take the lessons you have learned here today and use them to build a career defined by respect, integrity, and the courage to walk away from anything that no longer serves your highest good. Thank you for watching.